So welcome to the Dental Codology Consortium meeting for the 20th. We've got a robust schedule, so I really appreciate all of you being here. We've got a lot of work to do in a short period of time. And I'm proud to say that it's not because of procrastination, rather it's because there are so many things to cover, and we don't even get this list until, we didn't get the list until mid-December. I don't do this by myself, so always to recognize the executive team here of Kathy, Jill, Noelle, Linda, Paige, and Patty. We kind of did we set the agenda for a few weeks here, so I didn't have to bother you guys this week, but we're all good. So we're expecting to be no more than 90 minutes. If we have less, then that's a good thing too, but we thank you for your time. So let's say hello, everybody. Here we go. First, Angela. Is Angela here yet? No? Barbie, I think I saw you come in. Barbie, say hi, Barbie.
Hi, how is everyone?
There you go. Where are you at, Barbie? I can't remember.
Northern Idaho, but I represent Washington State.
Okay. Do you have any updates on what just came out in Washington State about what's going before the Board of Dentistry?
Well, we sent out an email, and Jennifer Sabarchuk, if she's...
Yeah, I'm hoping Jen will be on.
It's nothing
she signed in, but yeah, some interesting things. So we'll be talking about that more with the group and let you know, because Washington probably needs the help of all hygienists across the country. And anybody that's interested in not seeing practice act be annihilated. So Connie, say hi, Connie.
Hi, everyone.
There she is. Thanks, Connie. Cheryl from Hawaii. Not here yet. Okay. Denise? Not yet. Jan, I saw you. How you doing, Jan?
Good. How you doing? Keeping warm here.
Where are you at?
Buffalo.
It's warm in Buffalo?
No, I said I'm keeping warm.
Oh, okay. I thought that was goofy. Welcome. Jeanette, I see you just signed in. Jeanette, South Dakota. Say hi.
Hello. It's cold in South Dakota, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got about 6 degrees here in the Chicago area. I see Jennifer's on the list. Actually, Barbie, if you want to text Jennifer, because tell her we'd love to have her give her a couple of minutes to talk about what's happening out there. I think it's really important for everybody to know. Kathleen, are you here yet? Are you? Because Kathleen Fulo, she's on the list. Not yet? Okay. Kim Miller? Not yet. Chris Potts? Not yet. Lisa? Hey, hi, Lisa.
Hello.
There she is. See, that means we all have the reason we do this is not to take attendance, so that I hear you on the microphone, and that way I know you can talk when it comes to discussion. So, welcome. Linda Jarakowski, I think I just saw you. Say hi, Linda. I know she's here. She's just calling in. Linda Jorgensen isn't here yet. Just one of the other leaders, can you check Linda Jorgensen? If you can get her on, I'd love to have her on. I'd love to have all of you guys on. Lucy. Hey, hi, Lucy. Do I have your name right? Do we have your name right now?
Yes, it's correct. Thank you.
Hooray! I think I got it changed in all the places.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Just have to ask me. Well, okay, we know Kathleen Fulo had asked me a few times, but we try. Michelle, are you here yet? Not yet? Okay, Lucy, Natalie? Is Natalie here yet? No? Okay, we have somebody new. We have a new guest, and Nate. Say hi, Nate.
Hi, and thank you so much for inviting us.
We will, and explain to everybody else who Nate and Alan are as we move forward, okay? Let's see. We're at Nicole. Are you here, Nicole? Okay. And we already said hi to Noelle. Did we say hi to you, Noelle? I think so.
Yes, we did. But hello again.
Okay, from hi again. There we go. Oh, Michelle's here now. Michelle Finico, can you say hi? Not yet. She will. Paige, are you back in our time zone?
I am. Namaste.
Namaste. How long were you in India?
We were gone for 3 weeks.
Wow, that's
Oh,
fantastic.
it was wow.
I think we all watched it with just wonderment on Facebook. It was really exciting. Yeah. Say hi, Patty B.
Hi.
There you are, Patty. You're going to watch the chat box as usual.
I'm trying to. By the way, Janet Jordan is here, and so's Susie. And Jill's on the phone, so she can hear us.
Jill's on the phone. Okay, got it. Got it. Thanks, Jill.
Okay. Okay.
Got it. Okay, Sandra Berger.
I am here.
There she is. There's that beautiful voice. Sandy Bravo.
I am here, keeping warm.
There she is. And another Susie Brzezinski. You're here, right?
Yep, I'm here, Patty.
Terrific. And Madam President, immediate past President Tammy Flipiak. Say hi.
Hi, Patty. I'm here.
Terrific. Is Val here yet? Not yet. Okay, how about Kim Jockheim?
I'm here, Patty.
There you are. Hi, Kim. And I said hi to Jeanette. Apparently, I wanted her on her twice. See, Jeanette, how important you are. And Melissa. Say hi, Melissa. I think I saw you sign in.
Hi, everyone.
Terrific. We're really glad you're here, especially with talking about the implant submissions. Now, who I want to introduce is, I made a really great connection, which why it didn't happen before is surprising, but whatever. Things happen when they're supposed to happen. Dr. Doug Young is somebody that I've known here and there over the years. And anybody that knows anything about Canberra certainly knows that name. Of course, we also have the American Academy of Cardiology and the Canberra Coalition, and they have a number of submissions. Last week on our call, we talked about one of them. We talk about that because what happens is I reached out to Doug through Judy Bendit to say, hey, you know what, I think we could work together and help one another. So again, and Alan, you want to tell us a little bit about you as well as the Academy, and Nathan, you can also come back and talk about whatever you want for a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Patty. First of all, I wish we knew of your group. It's such a wonderful group. When the Canberra Coalition and AAC were getting together, we've been doing this for years and years, and we said we really need to push this forward and collect data and start implementing it in practice as well, because we're talking about carrier risk, and we are trying to improve oral health through America through prevention, but we don't have codes for it, and we sat down and worked together to discuss some potential codes that we can implement that are mostly evidence-based and things that are both universal and that can be used from any perspective, because Canberra, as you know, is taught differently in different dental institutions as well as dental hygiene institutions as well. So we wanted to offer something as a discussion point and collaborate and get out there the information. And we're so pleased that Patty and Doug networked with one another. And when we saw your organization and the wonderful things you do, it struck a chord to us, because I work a lot with special needs and the underserved, and this is what your group is all about, to address the issues of what's not being addressed, and the fairness value and the what we're looking for in the future and overall outcomes-based health. So we're pleased to be on your conference call. So thank you very much for inviting us. We understood that there were some concerns. We've offered up 6 different proposals, one being a modification of one.
We're going to go over all of those. We're going to go over all of those in specific, actually.
I'm apologizing in advance for a lot of paperwork that you're going to have tonight. So, but thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you. Nate, anything else to add, or was that Nate? That was Alan, right?
No, that was Alan. I just want to say the role of the hygienist in a clinical setting is critical as the preventative specialist. And I think the 6 recommendations we're making will go a long way for really moving and prevention into clinical practice. So hopefully this will be positive tonight and we can move more in that direction.
Terrific, and that's where part of it is there's the congruencies of building coalitions, and that's one of the things that we've been working hard as we've learned over, well, in any kind of arena, it helps if when you join together to make a difference. And so we're really glad that you're here, and you're certainly welcome to participate with us. Again, if in the Dropbox, so all the way to the top, if you did not download yet the submissions, and this is not the same as last week. What I'm trying to do, guys, is this is a 350-page document of submissions. So we're trying to take that little bite at a time. So what I've done is cut them down to what we're talking about for this evening. Again, I want you to ask each of you if you have renewed your membership. One of the things about being part of the Dental Codology Coalition Consortium is that you also need to be a member of the insiders groups of dental codology. I am excited to announce that the new website is up and running, and we have all kinds of content in here. We have, including at any masterminds, the consortium, you can go over here and you can get replays. Like if you weren't able to participate last week, you can go in and listen to those, the same as our masterminds, Q&A, and a lot more things. Now, one of the things is that you need a login. And everybody that is a member, which means they've renewed since the 1st of August of last year, you will be getting a code shortly. If you haven't, then you will be getting other information about your renewal process. But anybody's welcome to go in and renew at any time on their own. More information about that later. Now, our watchword of this committee and of this group, that what we do is that we believe that one of the issues that with the coding world that is so missing is it doesn't have enough voices. And the voices that are missing are hygienists, assistants, office managers, and other people within the dental practice that really have a lot of knowledge, yet we are not being tapped. So one of the goals of this group is to have a member definitely from dental hygiene, as well as from the other parts of our profession, to be on the voting committee that is an ADA committee. It's called Code Maintenance Committee, and I know this is review for a lot of you, but that's a 21-member committee that has been structured as it has since January 1st of 2012. And if we want to really learn how to do this and we want to be successful, we want to behave as if. And that's why what we do is we review all of the submissions called inventories that are submitted to the committee for their vote that will be voted on in March. And so again, your vote is your voice. And this is a way to have your voice heard, is through this process. Getting some cross here, guys. I want to always say thank you and recognize Jill Grassmick, who keeps us centered by creating our agendas and keeping us moving forward. Now, it's really important that we have learned, I've watched it over and over and over. If you want to get your submission through, you need to have attendance at the meetings. The CMC meeting, again, it's a 21-member body, but it is an open meeting, and there are microphones, and anyone can go to the microphone and submit verbal testimony. And what I've seen happen, particularly in the last few years, is if someone's not there to represent what it is that they have submitted, it doesn't have nearly as much chance of going through. Now, not to say because somebody is there, it automatically goes through either. So that's why, in a lot of ways, the advent of this group and the creation of this group was when Ann Petrell, the the CEO of ADHA, asked me if I had a few friends that might want to go to the meeting with us, and we ended up with 134 members of our committee. So this is where we've evolved to. We were able to have a presence at the CMC for both of the last 2 years, and it makes a difference. So we need to start really counting people now. Is if you can be in Chicago on the 14th and 15th of March to participate with us, that's great. But I also have another benefit, is this meeting is scheduled to go the 14th and 15th. Now, that's a conflict with another really important meeting that's on the 15th. And Alan or Nate, do you want to explain to them what's going on the 15th?
Alan, go ahead.
Right. That is the day I believe that the ADA Codes Committee meets and discuss the.
Now I'm talking about
new.
your meeting. I just told them about our meeting.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
About your meeting.
This is the camp. Wait a
Canberra
second.
meeting.
Our Canberra meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And the Canberra Coalition meets in Denver, Colorado, and we have some fantastic speakers.
I thought you're talking. Aren't you having a meeting? Isn't there a meeting of the Academy in Canberra in Chicago on the 15th of March also in relationship with the DIA?
Oh, wrong. I'm sorry. That is the. I apologize. This section on cardiology is meeting at that time, of which Canberra Coalition meets with them, but the American Academy of Cardiology has their formal meeting at that time. So they're doing a collaboration. Whereas Canberra Coalition is not meeting specifically. We're just part of the section on cardiology.
Will you be in Chicago or anybody in for Chicago at the codes meeting?
I will be there.
Are you, Nate?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Nate and Doug
is an AAC, the American Academy of Cardiology, is having their meeting on Friday.
That's what I thought. Okay. Because there might be some strategies that we talk about, because if you have to be over that other meeting and they don't hear your submissions until the 15th, that could be a challenge. We can get into those strategies later. So, okay. So first of all, again, we have 146 submissions to review. We're not doing them all tonight. We started them last week, and we will continue next week. The next Sunday, we have these, again, we had to kind of do a bunch of them in a row, but that's the way it is. If you're ever wondering about the schedule, one of the things that has been enhanced is, again, on my new website, you can go and there's a nice little calendar, and there's our coalition meetings as well as our masterminds, as well as my speaking schedule, if you want that too. But
notice on the calendar. What? Notice on the calendar that Sunday is at the end of the week.
Yes. And we're working on that, but it's just that, but it is. Thank you, Patty, for pointing that out. I've gotten so accustomed to it now. Okay, so.
And Melissa Obraka has a question.
Yes, Melissa?
Sorry.
Will they post a list of the agenda so you know when the specific codes? My experience has been, Melissa, that they work the list from the beginning to the end. That's the best I can say. Now, there's always a caveat with that, because sometimes if they see that something's related to something else, somebody submits to the committee, hey, if it pleases the committee, can we move something up in the agenda? So the answer is, we don't know. We also don't know how quickly they're going to go through them. The way we see this for the last, again, probably 5 to 7 years, there's been about between 65 and 85 submissions. This year it's 146. So we've got many more. So both Kathy Forbes and I have discussed this, and we think that this can possibly go into the 2 days. It's scheduled for 2 days, but it hasn't gone for 2 days for like I said, 6 or 7 years. So the answer is we just don't know. So the best I can say is they go in the order that they're listed in the inventories, which used to be that the inventories were listed in the order of the way they appear in CDT. That's definitely not the case this year, which is why our wonderful Linda Jorgensen, who I know is here now, spent a whole bunch of time trying to organize these for us, because it's like, how are we going to eat this elephant? So the section we're working on tonight are the implants, the prevention, and the aesthetics, if we have time for aesthetics, okay? Just to give you an agenda, and that's what you had copies of that I sent you for tonight. What I really want to make sure everybody is aware of, next week we're going to talk about the prophylaxis submissions as well as the other perio submissions, and I really hope that we get lots of people, so spread the word, and it does help if we have our subcommittee people here when we talk about them. Now, the first pages of your document has a list of questions to review that are important when looking at these submissions or these inventories. And again, I want to turn to Kathy Forbes and her expertise as to explain about each of these questions and why they're important. Go for it, Kathy.
Okay. Thank you all again for joining in on this group. We really, really appreciate your input. When you review codes, you want to take a look, the council looks at, are there any related submissions? And you'll notice by the item numbers, they have bundled some of them as we talk about them, because we're not the only group submitting, for example, for prophylaxis changes. The AA, American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, is offering some, so they kind of lump those together. They also look and see if the submission is a duplicate of a code. And we found over the 3 years I've been going to this, or 2 years rather, that their interpretation is a little loose. For example, we wanted to submit last year a procedure code for transmucosal local anesthetic agents. And they said they denied it, saying that they're bundling it with the 9210 local anesthesia code. So they can decide that something is a duplicate, but when we're looking at the submissions, it's really important. If you haven't purchased CDT 2019, you really need to do it and take a look at all the codes related to the ones that are being submitted. When we're going through these, you want to see if this submission is product-based. And for example, many of you are aware of the periodontal medicament carrier 5994 was submitted by the PerioProtect people years ago. The product is not listed, it's just the procedure itself. And so some of these submissions could be presented by a manufacturer, or you want to make sure that they're not the only product that could fit that procedure, although the way technology and everything is going, there could be some. But taking a look and see, is it product-based rather than procedure-based? Is the submission clear? This is probably the one that is most important, because I printed out all 146 inventories, and the notebook is 2 inches thick. So in terms of printed document, and I did it on one side only, but I need a paper in front of me. But making sure that the submission is clear, and when I read these and I read a nomenclature descriptor, and after I get done reading it, I go, huh? Then it's not very clear. So taking a look at that, and particularly who submitted it. We have found over the years I've been involved that if the National Association of Dental Plans or the Delta Dentals, any of the insurance carrier members submit codes, I take an extra hard look at it, because I'm wondering why do they want to break apart or add a particular code? And usually it's for metrics, so they can follow which ones are being used or not. If there's a name at the top who's the contact and I have no idea who it is, I am right on it, looking on LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere to see who this person is, because we have no idea where it's coming from. So things to consider when we go through these are the meat and potatoes.
The other thing, too, if I can add on to what Kathy said about submitted, well, 2 things. First of all, product-based. Sometimes codes are created, and there might be only one product or they're not products. There might be only one procedure that fits. So, for example, the example she gave for PerioProtect, at this point in time, as far as I know, there's no other product or no other procedure that might fit under that code because of the way that code was written. That was also the case when we first had the code for the adjunctive oral cancer screening devices. When that code first came out, only Visalite was available. As we've seen, though, there are a whole bunch of different companies now that have products, procedures, and assessment modalities that fit underneath that code. The other part about the who submitted, as Kathy so well pointed out with the NADP and the carriers, how we code and how it affects the future of coding by the metrics that we produce. And some of you may have heard this before, but I still think it's really important. An example of the importance of metrics is there's always a code. Even if there's not a code, a specific code that accurately describes, we have a 99 code. whether it's from the preventive D199 all the way through the D999. There's 99. What those are for is unspecified procedures by report in that category. And for a long time, a lot of people used antibacterial irrigation for as an important part of their perio protocol. The only code that was available to us for a long time was the D499. Now, that was the by report part of a code means there has to be a written part to say what you did for that. That's the report part. Shorter, better, another story. But anyway, the NADP actually came to the code committee in 2013, and they submitted an inventory for an irrigation code. That code is that and one of the reasons for that code that they had in their documentation is that it had been submitted over 500,000 times in 2012 alone. So how we code affects codes. By the same token, we have to be very careful in what codes we use that we don't play with them. That irrigation code can be tricky. We need to make sure that what we are using as that irrigation code, that we're not trying to make it, well, it's almost like that. No, it really has to be an accurate code, especially if we're trying to create the metrics. So Kathy, talk a little bit about unbundling and product neutral on this page.
Unbundling is one of those things. It's an actual legal term, but the council looks at are they taking something out of a particular procedure and calling it its own code? Unbundling. Off the top of my head, for example, a perio maintenance definition, if you go into the perio maintenance, if you read in there the actual definition or description of an adult prophy is kind of mixed in with the perio maintenance. And what's happening in a lot of offices is that the office, whether knowingly or not, bills an adult prophy when they do a perio maintenance and unbundle it because the particular plan does not pay for 4 perio maintenances a year. And that's called fraud. That's called fraud, yeah. Language. So, when they're considering these, they want to see if a code is being unbundled, and maybe it is a good thing to unbundle something. So we need to kind of consider knowing the other codes that are similar. Product neutral, we talked about that. One of the 4 of the codes that we're going to talk about are kind of semantics, but our group is changing the bleaching codes to whitening codes, because bleach is a product, and we know whitening can be done with things other than bleach. So one of the things we're submitting, we hope it goes through pretty easily, is just changing the terminology to whitening, take the product out of it. Wanting to make sure it's a procedure specific, and is it provider neutral? And that's the biggie right now, is that with direct access hygienists in 41 states, now there's 8 states that have dental therapists. And when you go through the CDT manual, which I got bored one night and went through and highlighted every time it referred to a dentist or a provider or a healthcare professional or whatever, because that's not a provider neutral code. We want procedure codes that take the provider out of it, i.e. dentist isn't the only one that can do a perio maintenance. It's a hygienist that does it, but yet it's at talks about after the evaluation of the dentist, a perio maintenance is performed, and it's in the descriptor, and we're trying to slowly move that it becomes the dental codes are provider neutral and procedure specific. The proposal's language does not impose any specific business model onto the procedure code. And again, that kind of goes back to the provider neutral, in that who bills it is important. And they should be in line with their dental practice acts, their scope of practice, and making sure that the proposal doesn't limit it from a business model to a specific provider.
Okay, so the way we do this, for those of you that haven't done this before, is this is, again, your vote counts. And Alan and Nate, we will invite you also to vote. What we do is we bring the code up. We look at all of the things that it says. We're going to evaluate things through those filters that we just mentioned there, as well as any other. open for discussion, and then at a certain point, we'll call the question and we'll decide. It's the same as if we were on the committee. Would we support this by voting yes? Would we not support this by saying no? Are we just not sure, so we're going to abstain? So what you do is when we get to each one, on each of these pages, I will have the code number that we're discussing. Put the code number in there, and then yes, no, or abstain. Okay? All right, here we go. So our first one, look who our first one's by. What a surprise. There it is, Ellen. There's your name right there. American Academy of Cardiology and Camper Coalition. Now, as we looked at this from our committee's point of view, if we just looked at Alan Wong, we'd go, who's Alan Wong? Now, some people, we had somebody, I think Michelle Panico, you were talking about, there was a dentist friend of yours that put a code in herself, yet she didn't identify herself as a dentist. And so sometimes there's a strategy of identifying yourself as a dentist here. I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't do, but we're going, who's Alan Wong? And then we thought, it's the American Academy of Cardiology and Camper Coalition. Because there's a difference, because people can submit things for themselves. Any individual can submit something, but with this one, it's also representing the AACD as well as Canberra. So, go things. Comprehensive oral evaluation, newer established patient. Now, we have this submission, and I think what would be valuable is a discussion about how this committee submitted to have this code changed last year. So Kathy, I'm going to go through and I'm going to have you do this, and we'll go back to discussing it. So we tried this last year, and let's talk about what our experience was in 2018.
Do we have to? I was the one at the microphone when all this came down. Okay, yeah, this is fine. Can we go to do we have the?
Yeah, one of the things to point out though is it was the second one heard of the entire meeting, which we thought was advantageous. Also, at the time, our name of the group was the Dental Hygienist Coding Focus Group. Our name has now changed to the Dental Codology Coalition because we have taken it out of a completely hygienist-centric to a whoever wants to be involved way of thinking. So here you go, Kath.
First of all, in the comprehensive oral eval section, there's a paragraph under diagnostic codes that reads as it is there, where it says that the dental exam may be delegated, however, the evaluation includes diagnosis and treatment planning as the responsibility of the dentist. And we wanted to take that out because we have dental therapists who can do comprehensive evaluations. We have dental hygienists and direct access, their own business, who are doing clinical evaluations. So we wanted to change it to clinical oral evaluations, including diagnosis and treatment planning, are to be performed by a qualified healthcare provider as determined by their state practice acts. And we had we had quite the rationale. We've actually talked about how their coding companion book talked about that there's no mention that the dentist must be the one doing it. The ADA's accreditation standards require being an education that we teach dental hygiene diagnosis. The ADHA has policy statements. Medicaid reimbursement protocols for 18 states will pay dental hygienists, but yet it would be technically fraud to bill a comprehensive oral evaluation as the descriptor states, because it says only a general dentist. So we wanted that paragraph changed, as well as the 0150 code. So there were two parts to this where we took out that the dentist had to be a part of it. So when we got up there, I'm standing at the microphone and I'm ready. I have all my documents. I'm set to go and do a brief intro, and they introduced it and said, does anyone have any questions for us? And it was dead silence, a pregnant pause, as I call it. And then they said, okay, let's vote. All those in favor. And one person did vote for it, but all the rest voted no, and they moved on to the next code. And I personally, standing there, was stunned that they didn't even have any kind of questions. Well, I know why, but you know, and basically those two codes went away really fast.
Yeah. So again, when we saw that you have that Camera Coalition was bringing forward something on the clinical oral exam, it's like, whoa, well, this is where an important concept, and this is, if people have worked on legislation, which I know many people have in their own states, this is where you brought it forward. That opens up the door for us to bring this back, people. That's what they've done with this code. Even though your code, the submission you have is to ask just to add this phrase of screening, including screening for caries risk. When they open this up for discussion, we'll be able to open up the discussion and go to the podium and ask for a discussion that we didn't get last year to talk about the provider-specific, business-specific way that this is written.
Yep.
Yeah? Everybody get that?
Yes.
Patty, did you put in there the 0150 from last year?
I didn't. Sorry, Kathy.
Okay.
I should have.
Yeah, you see in this, it said we suggested deleting that first sentence, and then it said this evaluation applies. So that's what we wanted to do with this code, was take out the first sentence and put this evaluation applies. So that's what I suggest when we go. We can, you know, again, propose it, and they're going to have to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to have to talk about it. Thank you guys for putting that in, because we decided to, you know, there's always strategies to everything that we're doing around this, and we had decided that we're going to try and figure out a different way to go about it this year rather than dealing with this one. But you opened up the opportunity. Now, before we go on, and because I do want to have Alan or Nate talk a little bit about what they're doing here, but is there any other discussion about what Kathy and I have already brought forward here on the opportunity that we have and how this is the way things go in the coding world and in the politics world of, you know, it doesn't happen this time, but it happens another time in another way. Any questions?
Vicky's got a good one. She in the chat box wanted to know how Alan feels about what we're suggesting, what we did, what their thoughts are.
From a personal standpoint, I have no problem with what the suggestion was just offered. Again, that's me personally. I'd have to go back, of course, to the Camera Coalition. But I understand the strategy. It makes a lot of sense, and I hadn't thought about it to that level. What we're trying to do is create change slowly and not redoing a lot of things. But I think personally I would support it, in concept what you just said. Nate, do you have any addition?
Yeah, I mean, we put this in because an 0150 requires screening for periodontal conditions, for oral cancer, and general health circumstances, as well as I think the new code includes a screening coded for diabetes, or for diabetes screening. And it's
Nate, I think they're Nate, I think they're meaning our thoughts about clinician neutral, if I'm not mistaken.
I have no problem with that, because screening for caries risk is the responsibility of the hygienist as well as the dentist. And it should be included in the way the practice functions.
Right. So having limiting language within a code, which is an inappropriate, what our position is that it's inappropriate to have it be provider specific, particularly with, you know, all the states that we have and all the practice acts that we have, and the way they continue to evolve. Tammy, do you have any thoughts from ADHA point of view at this point on this?
I really don't, Patty. I've just taken the notes on what the intention is of the group when this comes up. Certainly, you know, ADHA has policy on, you know, the role of the dental hygienist. So this is one that I'll definitely have to come back with.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Because the thing is that with this, so this just goes back to all of us as a committee. This is an opportunity that we didn't know that we would necessarily have, so we're going to need to figure out some strategy here. But if we can go back to, let's just look at, even if we didn't, until we get those changes that we want, how's that? Just adding the phrase, including screening for carries risk. Does anybody have any discussion? Now, explain how you see this in addition to the risk assessment codes that we already have in existence. As you say, they're the D0161 through 0163. How is this different than that?
From our perspective, as we teach in carryology and carries risk assessment, a lot of the new grads, a lot of the dental hygienists are not, this focuses the fact that this is part of our obligation as part of the exam. So to have it listed, whereas other things have been listed, perio and other things, this just brings an importance of the clinician to do this because it's part of our duty anyway.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's not something that should be done that maybe that we would use these other codes. It is part of the basic screening process, and then from that screening process we would further risk assessment and use those other codes too?
Correct.
Okay.
The screening is not a diagnosis. It is essentially leads to a diagnosis.
Yeah. And
you would be using all the other things we know about carryology to, in fact, come up with a, high risk, moderate risk, or low risk. They're really different things.
Yeah, they are. Okay, I'm going to call on Vicki and Sandy Rago. Vicki Better and Sandy Rago, because they are working with a company called Fraudlens, and there's a lot of things that are going around about the idea of what this comprehensive oral evaluation says if we're doing it. And my understanding has always been if we didn't write it, we didn't do it. So any clarity on that from Sandy and Vicki from the Fraudlens point of view?
Patty, this is Vicki. We're kind of been working more on the perio aspect of it. The 0180, they're really, Fraudlens is trying to definitely say if you do not do this exam, they're not going to pay for any kind of perio. We haven't talked about caries, but I definitely thank you so much, doctors. I'm definitely going to bring this to their attention and get some feedback on what they're thinking.
If I may, it just brings parity with the last sentence, where periodontal conditions, including periodontal screening and our charting, we're just emphasizing that we're recording dental caries, including screening for caries risk. Caries risk is what's not being done. People are, documenting you have a cavitation, but no one's documenting the caries risk portion.
If I might interject real quick here, taking a look at, are there existing codes? The D0190, screening of a patient, screening including state or federally mandated, is to determine an individual needs to be seen. I could see them saying, well, that would be best suited under D0190. So I would think your group, if you don't think that's has enough weight to it, so you can counter if they come back with, well, just put it under D0190. So I agree, it should be under comprehensive, but just understanding that they might try and divert it to something else, which is not your intent, because you can screen for caries, but you have to look at the patient as a whole. And so just being prepared to come back with why that wouldn't be probably the best code for you.
The one thing too, though, that I'm going to say that is not, I don't think if this code's going to be this submission is going to be that problematic because it doesn't cost the carriers anything extra. Okay, that's where we see a lot of pushback. Oh, well, we got to change our computers. We got to change this and that. I don't think anybody has to change anything other than the behavioral change, and that's why I brought up what I did about that. In order to show that we've actually done these things, we have to have documentation of that. Okay, it's not just that we use this code, oh, well, we automatically did that. No, if you didn't write it, you didn't do it. So how are we going to show that screening and that we're doing the caries, screening for caries risk? So Any other questions, any other comments on this first one?
Patty, this is Vicky. I totally agree with you. Dealing with the fraud end of it, they're definitely looking. If you didn't document it, you didn't do it.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And if you didn't document it, you didn't do it. Okay, everybody, it's time to vote for our first one. Yay.
Yay.
Do we vote by chat or do we vote by voice?
Vote by chat. By chat. So, put the number in too.
So you'd put a 31 dash yay or nay or abstain.
Yeah. Or you want to put yes, 31 yes, however you want to put it. But that's, by the way, hi Janet, we didn't get to say hi to you. Michelle, a few other people that came in later. So, all right, you can continue to vote. The chat box is still there. Let's move on to the next submission. The next submission is also by the AACD. This is to add to the reevaluation code. The reevaluation code, the D0171, that use, well, you know what? We've got the extra two. Why don't I let them explain it? So go for it, Alan or Nate.
Nate, I'm going to let you do this because you do it better.
I mean, the purpose of this was once a decision was made to treat a lesion non-surgically, then you need to follow that patient and that clinic on an ongoing basis, and you maybe need to do it every 2 months. I mean, it's like silver diamine fluoride. You might need to reevaluate the lesion a month later or 2 months later, depending on your decision or your conclusions of how high a risk the patient is. At some point, you may then choose to go from non-surgical to surgical, but this would give you the opportunity to use non-surgical treatment in an appropriate way.
So I have a point of clarification. So currently, let's just say that for the D4346 submission, when we have the gingival inflammation code, when we have someone back for the same reason, because we've had a severe enough infection that we want to see what kind of healing we have. If they are healed and no other further treatment is needed, this is the reevaluation code. So how would this change in this reevaluation code then work when I'm having somebody back to reevaluate a surgical site, something with a crown prep or an endo or whatever? Would this language then limit that we can only use it for non-surgical caries management? And if so, why would we need it there if we don't have all those other things listed?
Well, on the other things that you listed, one expects that there is a resolution to the problem. This is really a decision that it's not resolved. It's an ongoing kind of process in which you need to make informed decisions on how to proceed, including perhaps changing your treatment. And I think the fact that it might, it could be more open-ended than the code you described.
Patty, this is Kathy. One of the things that I've always liked about this particular code is there is no descriptor, which leaves it really open to whatever you're reevaluating. I'm kind of with you. By including that non-surgical caries management could prompt people to only use it for that versus leaving it open.
We have no other reevaluation code then for all of the other things we might want to reevaluate.
Right. Then we'd be laundry listing, and we get in trouble when we laundry list because we either forget something or whatnot. So I'm just not sure. Yes, go ahead.
We used the word including, so that would not exclude, I think, the way it's currently described.
But I guess I think what Kathy might be suggesting is because there is no descriptor, if we wanted to add language, because I believe, and you can correct me, is what you're trying to do is try through coding to do some kind of a behavioral change. And
Yes.
I think
That
that
would
the
be
behavioral
included,
change, that this could be problematic in adding it where it's been added because this is a code that is used for so many things. And if their behavioral change would then we want to, as Kathy said, laundry list in the specific, in the descriptor, this could include blah, 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 blah. You see where I'm going with that? Any other thoughts?
Yeah.
Somebody else talk. I'll call on you. Michelle Panico, I see you have your mic open. Go for it.
I have my mic open?
What's your thoughts on this?
Oh, well, I mean, I agree. It's hard when you start laundry listing. I think it kind of closes. I like the idea of it being more broad and where you can use it in different terms. I think when you start laundry listing things, it kind of might close us in a little.
Okay. Noelle, I see you have your mic open too. You guys are all going to look now, aren't you?
My mic open.
Noelle, what's your thought?
So I do like the concept behind it because it gives us the metric to track, but I think that where it gets a little messy is related to the laundry listing, and then some other problems become inherent in it. So the concept is a good one, but the implementation, I think, is going to be difficult.
Yeah, especially with no descriptor. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do on this code. And all of the argumentation and all the things, that's what's important to understand is all of this argumentation is great, but it all goes away if this is not put into the language. So basically we would have this information with no descriptor. It's going to create a lot of confusion. And so, again, I'm not saying for or against, I'm just saying what I'm looking at. Anybody have any other thoughts?
This is Alan. I had a question. Do you think that this code can be used without the modification for non-surgical caries management on a visit?
Sure.
Yeah, yes, I agree. Yeah,
absolutely.
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 Patty, I have an idea. This is Linda Jorgensen. I'm looking at 0170 and 0171 together. One is reevaluate, 070 or 170 is reevaluation limited, problem focused, established patient, not post-operative visit. And that one has a very short laundry list. And now we're talking about 171, different because it is a post-operative office visit. I'm thinking that the same laundry list that applied under 0170, and I can just quickly read you those conditions: traumatic injury, evaluation for undiagnosed continuing pain, and the third is a soft tissue lesion requiring follow-up evaluation. The same, and there again it says for examples, which implies that there might be others. What would you think about, maybe this is the wrong place to do this, but adding, including your underlined phrase here, including non-surgical caries management in that, or caries management at all. It carries risk management, because then you're talking
about... So what I hear you saying, Linda, let me get this clear, is rather than it being the addition to this code in the nomenclature, we add it to the laundry list that's in the 0170 code.
I'm just
reevaluation code also.
Yeah, kind of throwing that out there as an idea, because currently in 0171 there's no descriptor at all. At least not the one that I'm looking at, and I haven't.
No, there is no descriptor for 0171.
Right.
Nate, what are your thoughts? I was thinking the 0170 would be for surgical caries management type than non-surgical.
Yeah, I actually don't have the
No, what it really says, okay, here's the important part, is it says assessing the status of previously existing condition. That seems to describe what you're trying to do here, right?
Including high caries risk.
Including high caries risk or non-surgical caries management. I don't think you have to have high caries risk. I think the language they have here, including non-surgical caries management, goes as one of the bullet points underneath the 0170 would make more sense at first glance. Again, we haven't looked through this a lot.
That might be just fine.
Yeah, I don't resist against that. I mean, I don't struggle at all. That could be a strategy if they decide that they're against it. Is there a major disagreement as it is now? If it were to be,
I'm concerned personally, as I brought up in the beginning, the limiting language. It takes a code that is a great code for many or any type of post-operative visit and puts limiting language on it, laundry list language. So then I have some concern that there is a better way to do. And I know what you're getting at. Again, that's my opinion personally. So
great. Strategically, will the code committee open, because I don't know if 170 is being discussed at all. Would they consider making that modification and moving it to that? And I have no problem with this as one of the laundry lists in 170.
basically, from my experience, you can ask the code committee, and you might want to do it. Kathy, you've had more experience with calling them, saying that we think we might have a revision to something we submitted. Yep. How would we go about making that change if we want to make that change? Now, making a change. Yeah. Go ahead, Kathy. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would call the council, call Frank, and say, the Canberra Coalition, in reviewing this, that we believe that we may have put our submission for 0171 under the wrong one, that we really wanted it under 070. We had submitted something before, and we gave it to him ahead of time, and he was able to put it in the PowerPoint and get it posted. So absolutely reaching out to the council. Frank is the executive of that.
Frank
Picorni, and just say we would like to add this language under 0170 instead of 0171, and they can do that. But giving them a heads up before the meeting is strategically better to do instead of just dumping it on them.
Question is, did you have a committee that worked on this? How did you guys come up with it? How were these codes or these submissions created?
Well, we did have a committee, but in fact, you guys have identified we wanted to get in something about non-surgical caries management, and we were trying to find a place to put it, rather than
okay, because the reason I asked is because that's where we've found that we've done is we put together our subcommittees, and our subcommittees worked on these and looked at these things from a lot of different ways, and we're all learning together. So if we can help you in the future with that, that's what this is all about. This is what our coalition with you can bring. So let's go ahead and vote on this one, because we got to move this thing along, because it is getting late already, and I want to be able to go over the ones that we need to go. And if you are on the East Coast, I appreciate that you're here. You were here as much as you were. And if you got to go, I understand completely. Thank you for participating. Okay, so moving forward, the next submission is also from the Canberra Coalition. Now, this one's not from the AACD. This is Canberra Coalition alone. Can you just explain to us, Alan, the difference?
Currently,
it's only one organization instead of two. Is there a reason why AACD did not sign in on this one?
Right. AAC, they're more on research based, and they felt like, to their satisfaction, they felt like they didn't find the strength of evidence as much, but in codes, as long as, this is being taught, extreme carries risk. They just don't have the exact definition that they feel comfortable with. It's not they're against it. They just don't feel comfortable voting at this time with it.
Okay.
So extreme carries risk is defined slightly different than let's say moderate risk, and has different treatment modalities. So we felt that that this deserved a separate code in itself.
So
within Canberra, you have a specific definition for each level of risk for carries, for low, moderate, high, and now extreme? extreme carries risk?
That is correct.
Because Tammy, I think, Tammy and ADHA members, this might be something also we might want to consider for the future if ADHA does not have a glossary that has this type of distinction in it. Just throwing that out there. Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, Alan, I was thinking I like this extreme risk. I would make sure when you go to the microphone and say here's this code that it's known as there's a fourth category. You've got the 06, 01, 02, 03, that this would be the 04, so that you're not trying to change how 03 is done, but that this is just adding your that organization has 4 categories now, so you just want to make sure that these assessments are current with what the Canberra Coalition is looking at.
Correct.
Although we do not, the committee decides the code number.
Right.
That's what you're really going to do is ask them to kind of guide them. That's where we'd like to see this, because you don't ever submit the number that you want. They decide the number, but
I can see some of them coming up with well, don't we already have those? Say yes, but this is a fourth one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. So our distinction between high and extreme has to do with the salivary component and salivary assessment and lack of that automatically makes it extreme for is what's being taught in the dental education of the dental students anyway, and most of the Canberra Coalition community.
Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and vote on this one. Number 36. I don't have a page, so yay, nay, abstain. Okay, moving forward. Okay, we're going to be real honest. This is the one that prompted us to contact you. This one's a big problem, not because of what you're trying to do, but that's not a nomenclature. A nomenclature is a name. That is not a name in any way, shape, or form. And because if you think about it just from a technology point of view, a form point of view, or whatever, it's really, really long, and it's got this or this or this. This is, Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, if you were asking me what would be the best thing to do, I'd call the nomenclature salivary assessment, and then have a nomenclature, what you've written, the descriptor, what you've got in the nomenclature above. Just flip-flop those. And again, if your organization decides that would be something you'd like to do, if you let the council know ahead of time and write up what you want, say we would like to substitute this for inventory item 37, that can be done. But again, you don't want to walk in the door and say, hey, we got something different. Let them know ahead of time, and they're much more accepting of those kinds of editorial type of
Thank you.
items.
Yeah, this is basically out of being a neophyte in this arena.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the comment. Actually, I'm surprised. We're working with Stacy, and I think Stacy was guided us towards this direction.
Really?
Advertently or inadvertently. So let me read what I thought I heard. So the nomenclature would be basically salivary flow assessment by observation and or measurement, period.
That's it, period.
And then grab everything else and put that in descriptor, or is that not necessary?
No, yeah, I would put it in the descriptor.
Okay, so cut and paste and I have absolutely no problem with it. Again, this is just out of style that I'm not familiar with, but I understand totally your point.
Because the thing to remember is that when this comes up in the code book, the dental offices, many of them don't, unfortunately, read descriptors, but they do read.
Actually, let me take it farther than that, Kathy. What happens is a couple of things, and this is something that's relatively new to me, but a couple of our people on our committee that work for vendors, software vendors. First of all, when new codes come into being, the software vendors, depending if they're not on a cloud system, the software vendors have a license to give those updates to the offices. The offices have to choose whether they update or not, and a lot of them don't. In addition, the updates, sometimes depending on how the software is written, only has the nomenclature. So unfortunately, what happens, and I don't know if that's where, again, the influence might be, well, you really want them to understand all this, except it won't fit, and they won't see it anyway. So the nomenclature needs to be as specific and understandable as possible, but the descriptor also doesn't show necessarily in someone's software. So when they do take the time to look at that descriptor, then it's got to really be clear what that descriptor means.
Okay, so imagine, if you will, if and because I don't think that anyone, either Canberra Coalition or AAC, will have a problem with moving the aforementioned 1 and 2 descriptor in that last line and move it to the script from nomenclature to descriptor. Is there any substantive argument to this this proposed code?
There are other codes that are currently being used for that. I'm looking.
It's 0417 and 0418.
Yep, exactly.
But those are, 0417 is collection and preparation of the saliva sample, and 418 is analysis of it. So it looks...
They're different.
Well, the one is for laboratory, so 017 is not the same. 0418.
But those are the only ones that talk about saliva.
Right, but those are for lab sent out laboratory. This is for
not 0418 does not say laboratory. It just says analysis of a saliva sample. Chemical or biological analysis of saliva sample for diagnostic purposes. That's the descriptor of 0418. It doesn't say for laboratory.
So yours sounds like a salivary flow assessment versus an analysis of the sample. So being prepared, someone might ask you this very question. So be able to talk about flow assessment is different from analysis of the sample.
Thank you.
Correct.
And Patty?
Yeah.
I have another comment too. This is Linda Jorgensen. There's more to testing saliva, especially when we're talking about caries risk, than just the flow rate, which implies to me anyway the amount of saliva that's coming out of saliva glands. And isn't there a quality assessment?
Yeah.
So does your language here limit it to just the flow assessment?
This is correct. This is just for flow assessment, whereas the pH is usually in the screening.
Is what?
The screening, the caries risk screening, that's usually pH, saliva. I believe that's part of our standard testing, or I guess it'd be the qualitative versus a quantitative.
Right.
Okay. We'll see how, this sometimes too, you put something in there to see how it goes.
Okay.
I'm not sure how this one's going to go. So, all right, let's go ahead and vote, guys, because we did talk about this last week. Yay. And then we're going to move on to what we're going to move on to. I'm going to jump ahead and go back to this. No, actually for our implant people, I know we have Nicole and we have Melissa, and I think that these submissions here are very interesting from the implant world. So what we're talking about here is, tell me what you're trying to get to on this one, Alan.
Number 50, right?
Right.
50, yeah.
Let me grab my paper here. Well, there are different right now. There are different various strategies for treatment of biofilm, and most people think of antimicrobials, but there are other agents that are now being used as well. Nate, do you want to go into this more detail for me?
Well, I mean, I think we're moving into this new world of symbiosis, dysbiosis, and all the ways in which that can be dealt with. And that has not been so far, and it's critical for both perio and for caries, and yet we use it. Clinicians, chlorhexidine is a good example of a agent that we currently use in this attempt, but it's not the only one, and there's many more that are going to be coming.
Questions, comments, anyone? What about the no. Varnish, it's not, but it's not of our, Noel, I need you. What am I talking about here?
Cervatec?
Cervatec, yes. That's the product name, but it's actually a chlorhexidine varnish. Is that part of what you're getting to here, or yes, no, or is it more general?
Well, that's clear.
It's whatever the clinician's using. Go ahead, sorry.
So I would say when I look at this and I see that it's agents to manage biofilm and including but not limited to the antimicrobials, and of course that could be other technologies. Some refer to it as air polishing or aqueous powder streaming. Could be something, but I think that, with these codes that it needs to be a procedure, and this is talking about a particular agent. So I think that may be problematic for the CMC when they see that.
The word agent?
Yes.
Multiple agents do different things to biofilm.
Yes.
I mean, if you're using chlorhexidine, it's bacteriostatic. If you're using sodium hypochlorite, you're going after more of a killer. If you're using an arginine compound, you're using a prebiotic and essentially, again, impacting the overall biofilm, which is the cause. The overall biofilm is the cause, and you can approach it through a multiple ways, including the three I just described.
Right. So what I'm saying, though, it's not agent. It's not the purpose of these CDT codes are procedures, not necessarily the agents that are used in the procedure. So that's where I think it sounds like hair splitting, but Kathy, I would love to.
Yeah. In the 9,000 section, they have, they've got a whole drugs section that it might fit under, but I agree with you that we're looking more at the procedure. I'm looking back.
Part of this too is there's a lot of history on Alan and Nate as far as even our committee bringing forward lasers and again air polishing. Again, there's lots of different names that we could use, and we played that game. And what they said, has been decided over and over and over again by the committee is that's a methodology versus a procedure.
Well, we're not letting that happen. He's not asking, so we do it on purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of my thinking on this code, whether for it or against it, is that you need to get this in front of them to educate. And sometimes understanding this may not go through the first because maybe they're going to discuss, is it a procedure? Is it a drug? Is it to listen to the conversation while they're talking about it will give you a lot of insight into what the thinking of the council is. So,
you might want to bring somebody not just to speak, but somebody else is going to take the good notes because because that's a big part of it is how you can, as Kathy said, and Jeanette, you said that's what they said about lasers. Yes, that's right. Jeanette was there. She was there in person last year to hear it. Okay, so let's move forward. Number 50, yay, nay, abstain. Now we have another one, application of a non-fluoride remineralizing agent. Again, what do you guys are looking for at this point? I'm sorry to call you guys there, but what do you looking for?
It would be things that are non-fluoridated, like MI paste, calcium amorphous, and some don't have fluoride in it, and there's other agents coming out that are not going to have fluoride that are going to be probiotic in nature. So we're trying to look forward and have a methodology that makes sense as we move forward in remineralization strategies.
Okay, so we're really, again, this is as much for a metric as well as for possible third-party reimbursement.
It's Noel. So are there any other codes that specifically call out remineralizing agents, or is everything currently written as related to fluoride?
From my, I think it's all related to fluoride.
It's all related to fluoride, yeah.
So this may, in fact, have a place. I mean, have a very good place.
On the floor, just the carpet.
So are you seeing this as an office procedure, an office application of a non-fluoride remineralization agent, remineralizing agent?
Yes, possibly as well, whether it be arginine or whether it be other substances.
Because do we foresee this going into the same section as topical fluoride treatment, and therefore that whole section needs to be renamed to remineralizing agents, et cetera, et cetera? Because that's one of the problems that we have right now is we have trophies, we have fluoride, and then we have everything. As is everything else all goes into the same bucket. And I think that this, because where would this go? How would this work?
Well, that you bring an excellent point. I initially thought I would go in the fluoride area just to make that distinction that it's non-fluoride, ironically, and then I guess you'd have to relabel it.
And I would think, when you're presenting this, is say, we may need to rename that. We haven't put this in writing, but that the topical fluoride treatment in the preventive section needs to be renamed remineralization products or treatments or whatever. But so that particular section could be almost an editorial change if they decide this is a good thing to do.
I could see pushback from the carriers, not because they're just, we got to change our programming. Yeah, so what? They already got to change their program. By the way, that's anybody that's ever been to a coding meeting, that's what they always say when anything comes up for change.
My husband is a software. My husband's a software developer. He says it's easy to do that kind of stuff. So
yeah, exactly. I think that looking at this from a bigger global picture of that entire section, if we really want to move this forward in the prevention realm, then this whole idea that fluoride, and more fluoride is going to save the world is what we're really working on. So changing that entire section and including description. Now, this has been something that has been argued to death in some ways, yet there has been progress when we finally saw the age-based information, et cetera, taken out of this section. So, again, this might be another one that the bringing forward the idea is where this goes this year, and then looking at it further for the following year. I'm not saying that's the way it should go. I'm just saying that's the way it might go. So,
and in that year, developing a coalition with the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry would be very important for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so let's vote. All right. Okay. Okay. This is where, do we have two codes that are being submitted similarly by different people? Before I go further, though, what I do want everybody to I want to point out that this is also what happens. Dr. Peter Milgram submitting this, but he specifically is saying he's doing this as an individual. So this is where, again, sometimes it's easy to skip over that submitter information, but that submitter information is important. Now, what I have seen is Dr. Milgram has come to the coding committee before to testify, and I don't know if he's going to this time or whatever, but I'm just pointing us out in the first, looking at the top parts, because remember we said that's one of the things for you to evaluate is who's submitting it and how they're submitting it, with whom else they might be submitting it. So, Aries preventive medicament per tooth. Preventive predicament. Is this similar? Do you have any background? As long as we have you guys, we're going to just keep calling on you. Ellen and Nate, do you have any background or any idea about this one? Or were you aware of it?
I'm aware of Peter. I know you.
You're aware of Peter.
Very well. Everyone is. I have no exact answer to that unless Nate does.
No, I don't. It's interesting.
You know, it might behoove you guys to get a hold of Peter before the meeting and find out, you know, if you're on like pages, you know, like, is this different than the one previously, and coming together saying we have met and, you know, reached out to see if it is something different or it's something the same.
Okay, a good idea.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Gap in the codes. Now, one of the things I want you to notice, though, that Peter's written this and is working with somebody that's had a little bit more experience with the coding committee. He's speaking in their rationale to them. That gap in the code stuff is something that they're used to seeing. Okay, so this is where the argumentation also comes in of how this stuff is written up. So what's interesting is this one goes through an entire how you actually do this stuff. Lots of information. Okay, and I'm moving this stuff faster because I know we're already at the time frame that we said we'd be at. And so let's go ahead and vote. And this is, again, another one in the preventive area. This one is, if you notice, this is actually being submitted. We don't know who Lori Elshine is, but she is doing this in connection with Ivoclar. So this is the specific submission for a specific, well, at this point, it would be there's only one product that I know of that qualifies under it, and that's the Servitech. So what's our thoughts on this one?
Well, I bet you as soon as it has a code assigned to it, some other companies will come up with other products. So, and if Ivoclar is the only one that it happens to have a product at this particular point in time, well, good for them.
Mm-hmm. Melissa, do you have any thoughts on this one? I'm going to get you warmed up and see if you're still awake there, Melissa.
Yeah, I'm fading fast.
I know.
I have mixed emotions about chlorhexidine varnish. I know that the concentrations that we have here available, I'm pretty sure, are different from the ones that they're utilizing over in Europe. So study-wise, I don't know how it compares, if it's apples to apples or not. Have I used it in private practice? Yes. On some of our failing implants, and we figure what else, it's just like the kitchen sink approach. Let's throw one more thing on it and see if it's going to help the situation. Would it be nice if there's a code? Absolutely. But I think that if we can use this application more in the way that they're using it over in Europe, it might be more beneficial. I think that they have something that's, I have to do a little bit more research, but I think that there's something that they're utilizing that's not just chlorhexidine.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things I want to point out is in the descriptor, it says direct supervision with a dental professional. Does that language belong there?
No.
It's something for us to consider.
No, doesn't.
Anybody else notice that?
Well, I would say let's not use dentition. We need to be more broad with that because the implants are excluded from dentition. And that's the only time I've actually used it in private practice is on implant dentistry.
So perhaps if someone during the CMC meeting would ask the committee, because we cannot make an amendment to it, but the committee can make an amendment to it, that having those items that we object to, I mean, as written, I think there's some problems here. It's specifically what Melissa just referred to, that would be either natural teeth or implants, and strike under the direct supervision of a dental professional. And again, I think it's just a matter of maybe someone not being as familiar with writing these things. And if the committee would accept those revisions, then great. But the risk you take is that no one on the committee would make an amendment and have it seconded and then have it voted on. But that's going to be, up to Lori to manage when she's there testifying, whoever Lori is.
In addition, that's another way for us to do an end around about our supervision and professionals and who should perform, and any language that puts those kind of limitations into the coding is inappropriate. Another time for us to testify on that. right?
Patty, Siobhan has a good question in the chat box about what are they trying.
Siobhan needs to say it. Come on, Siobhan, I want to hear you.
Speak up.
Speak up.
They're not mentioning the condition that they're trying to arrest with the chlorhexidine varnish.
Okay, but are they trying to arrest something? We don't even know that. Is that an assumption?
Well, that's what I mean. It
Yeah.
doesn't explain the purpose.
Okay, this is just a step-by-step, sensitive stuff. Okay, yeah, that's all we've got. That's all we've got. Okay. All right. Let's vote.
Is your game over?
Okay. This is another code that also was in the same section that is written by a dentist by themselves. Nobody else has joined with this dentist on this. Long-acting minimally leaching antimicrobial capacity.
Patty, this is Sandy.
Yeah?
I can possibly speak on this. I've not had a chance to read it yet, but I've worked with Kirk Kimmerling on this in the past. I understand this product very well.
But I don't understand what that nomenclature is. I don't know what that is. Long-acting minimally leaching antimicrobial capacity. Is that a procedure?
If they're looking at it's a procedure underneath resin filling to inhibit continued bacterial growth as an antimicrobial.
Does anybody understand the word capacity?
So it sounds like it's the application of a long-acting product of some kind, but I don't know what it. I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, being a procedure that, like you said, Linda, application of would make it more. This is a procedure, not just a product.
Since none of us can figure out, well, I guess this would. I would check off the unclear box on this one if I was voting.
And I will definitely give this feedback back to them.
Time to bring that person on our committee. Hello. Everybody's available. I mean, this is where we're going to make a difference is when we join together. So yeah, this is one. Okay, so we've got a lot of rationale here, and but the rationale, remember, is important for understanding. But the first part that has to be understandable is the nomenclature itself. Okay, let's move forward. Wow, we got lots of, whoa, we got additional information. Okay. Oh.
And they actually worked with somebody in Chicago on how to write this. So I wasn't part of the writing in any way other than just asking a question this week.
Okay.
Obviously, they got some not such good advice.
You know,
well,
Patty.
That's our opinion. That's the opinion of us here.
Patty, one thing that comes to mind as we go through all of these, and it relates back to when they were going to when they formed a subcommittee to review procedures. I could see them taking all these particular codes and saying, let's create a subcommittee to investigate over this next year and come back and with more succinct language, and maybe some of these belong under the other, and I could see them doing something like that.
There is actually, I don't know that we can or we can't, I've never heard it done, but we also can suggest that perhaps a subcommittee, depending on how the discussion goes, perhaps a subcommittee is needed with including the American Dental Hygienists Association, the American Academy of Caryology, blah, 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 because they did do that before, but, and I think that that might be helpful. Okay, let's talk about mid-class. One of the things I wanted to point out to you again on the website is that whether it's this one in the insider insider content, there are the masterminds, including the one that Melissa did. Remember, she did those awesome, great slides for us back when we were talking about implants, and were used by their implant committee, even in their submissions. And then the other night we had Susan Wingrove talking about, again, within the focus of implants, about the elimination and codes that we have with that. We know we need more codes. I brought these forward then, but because we have 3, 4 of the committee members here tonight, want you to talk about them, the 4 of them that we have, and a bit of a suite of how you came about creating these codes and the important parts of understanding these codes. So Melissa, you want to start? Kick it off?
Sure. Well, in the world of implant maintenance, the codes that we have for the patients that we see don't exist, because the amazing advances that implant dentistry have afforded us for our patients have basically created a whole new genre of patient. We have edentulous patients that don't have any teeth in their mouths, and their dentition is fully supported with implant dentistry. And there is not a single code that exists to support that for what myself, Siobhan, Nicole Fortune, Miranda Beeson are doing with these patients and many other hygienists across the country. Because a 1110 or a 4910, it doesn't describe what we're treating. So what we tried to do was break down the different types of implant dentistry that we see, because some patients, like I said, have no teeth in their mouth at all.
I'm sorry, I have it in the wrong place. Go ahead, keep going, you're doing great.
Some people have no teeth in their mouth at all, where other patients will maybe have a maxillary arch fully retained on implants, and then natural teeth on the mandibular arch. And then there's some implant bridge work and natural teeth in combination. So there's so many different variations. We tried to break it down as easily as we could so that these patients were represented. So that's why we chose per arch in some of the nomenclature that we wrote. And just so that we actually have coding that supports these patients. So the code that we currently have is when the entire prosthetic is removed and then replaced. And a lot of times I'm seeing patients, or my colleagues are seeing patients in the interim where that is not happening, where the prosthetic is staying in the patient's mouth when we're discussing these kind of hybrid cases. So that's kind of a rundown. I don't know if Siobhan or Nicole, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, so there's definitely a new kind of a mixed dentition, and that is definitely the dentition where you have, like Melissa said, an upper arch and a lower arch, but then you also have single implants placed at several different implant sites. There's also some new areas that I've been looking into, like the necessity to actually have to remove a prosthesis. Some were saying once a year, every 3 years. We know that it's individualized based, but there has been some other professionals that I've been talking to who are, it may not be necessary because of the damage that it does. So then, like Melissa said, we know there's nothing to really describe what is going on. This particular code is important because you do have those cases where you have the patient who has a full mouth of single, an implant supported bridge, upper and lower arch. And, you have to be able to, it would be helpful if we had a code that actually describes how we are debriding by quadrant, like we would in the scaling and root planing codes for natural teeth. I feel like the code that we have now is really not the reality. It's treating a single implant. Well, what about all the other implants? And it can get kind of costly if we have to submit that one code per implant. So
one of the things that your committee did that I think is brilliant is we already have scaling and lip planing codes. Awful language, we got to get rid of it. Can't say it without just saying that part. But is that we already have scaling and lip planing for 1 to 3 teeth and 4 or more teeth. So what you're submitting is a change to the one that we have now to make it that 1 to 3 implant bodies for both perimucositis, which right now it's only mucositis that we have the code for, this is and/or peri-implantitis, but a really important part is the very limiting language that was added to the descriptor to get that we can't do it with the O&O, O&10, and all those other things there. So then you did another code that matches that. This is for the 4 or more implants. So what we totally have is 4 codes that we have submitted. Is it 4 or 5, guys? 5?
4.
Whatever, but they're all around the implant area.
Yeah. I think it was 5.
Oh.
5 too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 5. Now we've already, as a committee, have discussed these, voted on these. That's how they got into being. But there's part of the reason I wanted to bring them up again here, and we can vote on them again if you'd like, or we cannot. It really, again, we've already voted on these. That's how we got them submitted. But this did come from this group. What we'd love to see in the future, perhaps, as far as the coalition, is that on that name, we'd like to see that we have the American Dental Hygienists Association along with us. We have the American Academy of Cariology and the Canberra Coalition. This is where it's important that we also want to build coalitions with the people, with other people, because it's going to give our submission more strength. Now, there was a challenge, and Kathy, you're going to have to explain this mess of what they did and how messed up this is. And we're going to have to ask for clarification for ourselves, for our own codes, because of the way this got submitted, or the way they got written up.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Remember, this has to do with the nomenclature for how tell them what we tried to do with this and how this is messed up.
I'm not sure what you're asking. I'm sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
You're looking at a flow chart we kind of tried to come up with in terms of, although this looks like it's of what you use when. I mean, we wanted to give them in the supporting documents, instead of having to flip through pages with all the different nomenclatures, put them all on one page. Now, I think it should be 2 pages though.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess. Kind of a mess. So we'll have to see how this is done and how we can clarify this with the committee. This will come up again next week when we talk about the Profi codes, because how these requests went in got a little bit messed up. So
I was just going to say, because my flow chart does not look like the one on your the screen.
But
one thing I know that was a little disturbing is we sent in really clear photos that weren't skewed and stretched and squished, and
they're awful.
They are. Yeah, because this organization, the flow chart, yeah, you've got one that's not complete. The complete one is in the actual inventory item. And we did this for
photos.
Yeah, look at what they did to the photos. I'm not sure what happened, because we sent them very good JPEGs. So anyway.
Yeah.
We'll have to make sure that they're not upside down.
Does anybody have any questions, concerns, or questions specifically for the committee that they're here for the implant suite of codes?
What I might, if I can just throw something out there for the implant committee, if you could create a document that has the photos for each done well, the way that you sent them to me. If you could, maybe we can make up a handout we can hand out to the 21 members with the real pictures. That would be really helpful.
Okay, I'll see what we can do about that.
We have until the 5th to 14th of March, so
yeah,
it's not like it needs to be done tomorrow.
No.
It needs to be done tomorrow. Okay. Anyway, so if we go ahead and vote as this as a suite of codes, and if you want to just put yes, no, suite of codes. If you have something you really want to vote negatively to, you certainly is your choice. If you haven't looked at this, what I'm really hoping is with this, that, because when you first get all of these submissions, you go, oh my God, how am I ever going to read through this? But I hope through these exercises and our discussions here that we're helping you to see what is important to look at, why it's important, and you know, in all the different pieces and parts that go into this process of making a change, because our goal is to truly change the world, really. Again, my 3 precepts that my dental codology business, my 3 pillars are that we can have a world with no oral cancer, that we can cure not just manage periodontal disease, and that we can have a caries-free world by 2020 as per the World Federation of Dentistry goal. Yeah, those are some high goals, and we're not going to get them by continuing to do what we've always done. So we need to really continue to influence this part of the world through coding. So go ahead, Kathy.
No, it wasn't me.
Okay. Anybody else, any comment? We're going to skip over the whitening codes. We will do those at another time. We did make it through second section. Again, we really are thrilled and honored that you, both Nate and Alan, have joined with us. Guys, if there's other people that we want to bring on these calls, please, let's bring them. Let's bring them. It's really, really important. We've got the next one next week on next Sunday. Then we have to take some time off, but we really only have 3 weeks to go over the rest of all of the codes that are there through the inventories so we can make a decision about them. If you need me, text me, email me, Facebook me, instant message, whatever way. I'm here to help. Ours is the future to create, and I know that we're up to it. So I want to thank every single one of you for your time tonight.
Patty, before you sign off, Jennifer is on. I saw
Jennifer's on the call.
And I think we need to.
Yes. Kathy just got your email about what's going on in Washington. And if you can apprise the group as to what's going on, because I think everybody here would like to hear the news.
We've been in discussions with the Dental Association since November in regards to some of their legislative agenda items. They notified us the week before our first meeting exactly what those items were, and they included scope of practice changes from hygiene, adding them to assistant scope of practice, and their goal was to not have any educational requirements that our local Dental Quality Assurance Commission would be the one to determine what might need to be done, but their recommendation was that it be on the job. There were 3 particular tasks that they wanted to have be included, and that was prophylaxis with supragingival scaling, scaling utilizing ultrasonic devices, and periodontal probing. So we were working with them on these particular items, trying to find some common ground in assessing why they wanted to have us. They're saying a shortage of hygienists in our state. However, we don't have any needs assessments that support that. And our recommendations were to get a needs assessment and then work from that and move forward. We were scheduled to have our 3rd meeting with them on Friday, and on Thursday night they sent us an email stating they were canceling the meeting because we introduced language for dental therapy. So we did see them at the commission meeting on Friday morning and tried to get more information from them, but they would not enter into conversation about their reasons why they canceled any further. So we are going to be seeing, or we have been told from legislators that they've already spoken with, that they will be introducing legislation. We expect the bill to be dropped this week that includes verbiage for profees to be moved or be added to the scope for dental assistants. And that we are told, and we have not seen any bill language at this point, but we're told that it will be on the job training. They are also asking to have this infection control be moved to general scope. Currently in Washington, the dental assistants are not licensed, nor are they required to have any education. You have to register is the only requirement. So anybody off the street can come in as long as they pay their $40. They can be trained on the job to take x-rays, do coronal polishes, place rubber dams, anything. So we had countered their original recommendation for this with adding assistant supervision by a hygienist, and they're against that as well. So we are looking this week to see what the bill language is when they drop it, and then we will move forward from there. Our dental association in this state has the second largest PAC, so we're up against some financial muscle that we're going to have to be working against. So that's the latest update.
Thank you, Jennifer. The thing is that what we want to be careful of that we don't turn reactionary and try to get limiting language into coding. Remember, there's times when this is where it's easy to, when we feel like something like this is happening, I'm sure it concerns everybody on this call on some level or another, because it happens in one state, it can happen in other states. Yet that doesn't mean having coding have the limiting language is going to be helpful to this situation. This is a different level of legislation that needs to be dealt with, and that's where, of course, you're talking to Washington dental hygienists, and I'm sure ADHA. Tammy, do you have any comments on this at all?
Hey, Patty, I don't. I just know that ADHA's Ann Lynch is working with the individuals in Washington. And again, another very awesome point that you made about, advocacy and the importance of that. And certainly ADHA is always there for those things.
Terrific. So Jennifer, keep us posted. Everybody from all our various states that we're in, keep us posted, because we are all in this together. And again, as I said, the future's ours to create. I know we're up to it. We're thrilled again that you're all here. I appreciate your time, and thank you very much. And good night.
Good night. Thanks, Patty.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you very much, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.